In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a zero-based budget. This is the budgeting method that I've been following for the past several years, and it's helped my husband and I live primarily on one income while building multiple six figures in savings. The zero-based budget method means that your income minus expenses will equal zero. I personally think it's the easiest budgeting method to follow because every dollar you earn will be assigned a job. And for those who struggle with impulse shopping or overspending like I used to, this is a highly effective way to get your money under control. You don't have to guess anymore where your money is going. You're in charge because you get to decide how you want to spend your money. In other words, some of your income will go towards paying expenses, some will go towards paying off debt or savings and investments. So whether you're making a budget for the very first time or you're looking for some motivation to get back on track, today I'm going to show you step by step how to create a successful budget for beginners. But before we get started, I want to cover 4 important questions that new budgeters don't ask themselves, which is why they get frustrated and can't seem to get ahead with their money. Question number 1, why am I budgeting? You need to decide why you're creating a budget. Many people are hesitant to make a budget because they feel like it comes from a place of scarcity. In fact, resistance is ingrained into our brains from a young age, and we all have some form of inner rebel that likes to do the exact opposite of what we're told. This cognitive bias is called psychological reactance, and it's the reason why we sometimes sabotage our own goals. Because when we feel a threat to our freedom or feel like our choices are being limited, this can make us feel annoyed, angry, or even panicked. And when we feel this unpleasant motivational arousal, this can lead us to actually do the opposite of what we're being told or asked to do, even if it sabotages our own goals. I remember when I resisted creating a budget. At the time, I was even afraid to look at my own bank account because I wasn't sure what I would find. So I would spend money recklessly because I didn't want to feel restricted, and buying stuff made me happy in the moment. Now, the way to prevent psychological reactance is to change the way you talk to yourself. We need to ditch the negative self-talk. Here is one word that you can use that will make a huge impact in your life. Instead of thinking that you have to do something, like I have to budget my money, tell yourself, I get to budget my money, or even I deserve to budget my money. Change I have to do this to I get to do this. And if you don't like the word budget, then don't use it. Choose a word and use language that empowers you. For example, maybe you want to call it a spending plan or your freedom planner. Choose a language that you feel comfortable with and motivates you. We don't create a budget because we want to restrict ourselves. We create a budget because we want to have more opportunities in our life. We want that financial freedom for us. So decide why you're budgeting. Maybe you want to pay off debt, or maybe you want to trim some of your expenses and stop spending so much money. Or maybe you're saving up for something really exciting, such as a wedding, a dream vacation, or you want to buy a new car. When we know why we're doing something, it can make it so much easier to follow through. And that brings me to question number 2. How can I factor in the fun? To plan a successful budget, you need to make room for the fun stuff. When you know you have that extra wiggle room in your budget for fun things like getting your nails done, going out for brunch with your friends, or splurging on a concert, this can actually help you stick to your budget. Question number 3. What is the best budgeting method for me? There are so many different ways to budget. Some people prefer to write everything down on paper, some people use cash envelopes, some people prefer to automate using an app, and some people like to use spreadsheets. Keep in mind that personal finance is personal, and the best budgeting method you choose is the one that works for you. The key is to not wait until you have a lot of money to start budgeting. Even if you only have $20 a month, it's important to make a plan for that $20. And that brings me to the last question. How can I be kinder to myself during this journey? You need to remember to give yourself some grace. It's going to take a few months to get a handle on this whole budgeting thing. And if you're brand new to budgeting, it could take you even longer to create your first budget. because this is a new skill that you're learning. And your first budget won't be perfect, but that's okay. Nobody's budget is perfect in the beginning, and neither was mine. It's actually a good thing because it gives you plenty of opportunities to make adjustments, and with more practice, you'll definitely get a better handle on it. Don't forget to ditch the negative self-talk and practice self-compassion. So, are you ready to create your first budget? Let's do this. The first step is to list your monthly income. If you're budgeting for the first time, you'll want to figure out your total income for the upcoming month. This is your take-home after-tax pay for you, and if you're budgeting with your partner, it includes their income too. So, what exactly does your total monthly income include? You'll want to include any income that you receive, such as from your full-time job, part-time job or side hustle, freelance pay, social security checks, and any other source of income. If you don't know how much money you bring in each month, you can check your bank account statements to find out how much your paychecks are. And if you earn irregular income, most people calculate the average amount they make each month and use that number to create their budget. But I don't recommend doing this. Instead, you'll want to create a budget based on your lowest monthly income estimate. To do this, look at your income each month for the past few months. Then, take the lowest amount and go with that. Ideally, you'll want to look at your income for the past 12 months and go with the lowest month. This can help you get familiar with earning trends and how your income may vary throughout the year. For example, a rideshare driver's income might be higher in the spring and summer months when travel is popular and lower in the winter when more people are staying indoors. Now, if you're new to side gigs, working on commission, or living on irregular income, don't worry. Try your best to estimate what your lowest earning month will look like and use that as your income for your budget. This is because when you budget low, it's much easier to make adjustments as needed. When you set your budget higher and your monthly income is less than you anticipated, you'll be creating a lot of unnecessary stress for yourself. The next step is to list your expenses. Now it's time to list your expenses for the upcoming month. This will include your regular and fixed variable expenses, irregular expenses, savings, and debt payments. Let's start with your fixed expenses. These are your expenses that don't change from month to month or period to period, and they usually take up the largest percentage of your budget because they include things like housing, rent, mortgage, utilities, your insurance, car payments, and transportation, such as a monthly Metro Pass. Some of your fixed expenses may be discretionary, such as streaming service like Netflix, a gym membership, even though they aren't considered essential living costs, meaning you could probably survive without these expenses. These bills are consistent each month and paid on a regular basis. You can list everything down on a piece of paper or spreadsheet. I personally like to use this recurring bills worksheet to keep track of all my fixed expenses for the year. For this video, this is just an example of some of my fixed expenses. It allows me to list the bill, when the payment is due, how much it will cost, if it's on auto pay, and how often I need to pay the bill. For example, some of your bills must be paid each month, such as your rent or mortgage, and some of your bills might be irregular, which are paid on a quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis. You can list your bills and fixed expenses in order by their due date to keep things organized, or if you prefer, you can list your bills by the largest to smallest balance. If you don't know how much you spend on these items, you can check your bank and credit card statements for the past 3 months and take an average to help you determine how much you're going to spend. Now, once I have everything written down, I pull out my paycheck budget worksheet and list the bills and fixed expenses that I need to budget for the upcoming month. For example, I'm putting together my budget for January. I can see on my recurring bills worksheet that my annual subscription to Beachbody, which is a fitness streaming service that I use, is due on January 15th. So I'll make sure to include this in my January budget plan. When it comes to budgeting for groceries, you have 2 options. You can include in groceries under your fixed expenses if you want, since you know that you'll be buying groceries every single month. Or you can include it under your variable expenses since the amount you'll spend might vary from month to month. I personally put groceries under my variable expenses, but you can choose whatever option works for you. For other food spending, such as restaurants, fast food, coffee shops, and takeout, I also include this under my variable expenses. The next step is to list all your variable expenses. These are your daily living expenses, such as buying groceries, eating at restaurants, drinking Starbucks, buying clothes, traveling, or going to a concert with friends. They're considered variable because the amount you spend can change from month to month. Most of your variable expenses are discretionary, which means they are not essential living costs. These are the things that you want and are nice to have, but aren't necessary. However, some of your variable expenses are necessities, such as buying groceries or getting gas for your car to get to work. The key here is to make sure that you're spending less than the income you bring each month. Under your variable expenses, I also recommend adding a miscellaneous spending category to your budget, which I did here, as you can see. Sometimes life happens, such as an unexpected expense comes up or we forget to budget for something. A good way to budget for these unexpected costs is to include a miscellaneous category in your budget. It can be any amount that makes sense for you and your lifestyle, such as $50 or $100, which I put down here. If you go over your budget or forget to add something else that's not included in the rest of your budget, you can pull from your miscellaneous expense category. But just because you have a miscellaneous money available in your budget, this doesn't mean you should spend it on things you don't need. If you have money left over at the end of the month, put it towards your goals, such as paying off debt or your sinking funds. You want to make sure that your income minus expenses is zero for a zero-based budget. This is because if we have money left over, chances are it will get spent without a purpose. And the goal of a zero-based budget is to help you spend with intention. Every dollar should have a job in your budget. If you're over budget, double check your math or take another look at your expenses to rearrange your spending plan. If it's negative, then you'll need to make adjustments to your budget so you can balance it out. You want to have some money left over so it can go to your savings and debt payments. The next step is to list your sinking funds. Now that you have your income, bills, and daily living spending figured out, let's make a plan for your future expenses. Here we'll start with sinking funds. These are the things that you have an annual payment on, such as insurance, Amazon Prime, Christmas, clothing, medical, and so on. It's something that you're continuously saving up for, knowing that it will eventually come, and when it does come, you will have your payment ready, such as buying a new car, going to a wedding, or taking a vacation. You won't feel guilty about your spending because that's what it was there for the entire time. Now, you can list everything in alphabetical order or however you wish. You can put it on a piece of paper, a spreadsheet, or whatever budgeting app you use. I personally like to use the Sinking Funds Overview worksheet to keep track of all my sinking funds for the year. It allows me to write down the sinking fund that I want to save for, the amount of money that I need, the target date I'll need the money by, and how much money I'll need to save weekly or on a monthly basis. Once you have your list written down, I want you to identify all the sinking funds that are annual payments, such as Christmas, for example. You can put an asterisk next to them or mark them with a colored dot. So here, I'm just going to put a star next to Christmas. The next step is to figure out when each annual sinking fund is due for that one-time payment. For example, I pay an annual subscription to Beachbody, which is a fitness streaming service. The payment is due on January 15th and costs $144. I want to make sure that I have enough cash set aside so I can pay this one-time annual payment in full. The best way to do this is to set aside a certain amount of money each month until I have enough saved up to make the payment in cash. To figure out how much money I need to set aside each month, I'll divide the cost of the annual membership by the number of months left before the due date. Since there are 12 months in a year, I'll divide $144 by 12, which equals $12 a month. This means that I need to set aside $12 each month for the next 12 months in order to save $144. Now, depending on the sinking fund, you may want to choose an earlier date to have the money you need saved by. For example, Christmas, which is obviously December 25th. In this case, you probably don't want to wait until December 25th to have the money saved. This is because most people get Christmas gifts, buy groceries for Christmas dinner, or spend money on holiday parties before December 25th. So let's say you want to do most of your Christmas shopping in November. This means you want to save the money you need for your Christmas sinking fund by November 1st. If you want to save $500 for your Christmas sinking fund, here's how to figure out how much money you need to set aside each month. Divide $500 by the number of months left until the due date, which in this example is November 1st. So let's say you want to start saving for Christmas starting in January. Here you'll divide $500 by the number of months, which is 10, left until November. This means that you'll need to set aside $50 each month for the next 10 months in order to save $500 by November 1st. Now, if you want to get even more specific, you can figure out how much money you need to set aside from each paycheck for your sinking fund. To do this, count how many paychecks you'll receive leading up to the payment due date. So if you're paid bi-weekly, you might have 22 paychecks left until Christmas. 500 divided by 22 equals $22.72. Here, just round up the number to $23. This means you'll need to set aside $23 from each paycheck until you'll have $500 saved in your Christmas sinking fund. Now, let's create a budget for your non-annual sinking funds. For your other non-annual sinking funds, decide how much money you want to set aside each month or from each paycheck. For example, one of my non-annual sinking funds is travel. I like to travel a few times per year and want to make sure that I have enough money saved up to pay for my trips in cash. Each month, I like to set aside $200 to put towards my travel sinking fund. This allows me to save $2,400 a year to spend on travel. I don't have a target date here since the travel can happen spontaneously or sometimes they are planned trips. I just like to try and set aside money, $200 around that amount each month so I can save $2,400 a year. If I know that I'll be going on a trip that requires more savings, I'll create a budget in advance and increase the amount of money I set aside each month leading up to the departure date. So, creating my January budget, this is how my sinking funds would look written down for my January budget. I wrote down Christmas, birthdays that I'm saving up for, travel that I'm saving up for the year. I also put down property tax as one of my sinking funds since I have to pay property tax twice a year, and instead of reaching from my income to pay for the whole amount in one month, I set aside a little bit of money each month so I have the cash saved up when I need it. The next step is to list your savings. You'll want to set aside money for your other savings goals. This budget category includes income that you would like to put towards your savings, investments, and debt payments. This is usually the most overlooked budget category for many people, but it's also the most important. Saving money probably won't have an immediate impact on your day-to-day life, but it will put you in a position for a brighter future. You may have heard the term pay yourself first. This means that you make it a habit to put money into your savings first, as soon as you get paid, and before you spend your money on other things. Creating a budget before the month begins and paying yourself first is the secret to building your savings. So, what should you include in your savings? At bare minimum, every household should have an emergency fund, which is set aside for unexpected expenses and a retirement account such as a 401k or IRA. If you don't have an emergency fund or retirement account yet, don't worry. It's never too late to start working towards these goals. If you're brand new to budgeting, or you live in an area with a high cost of living, or you're living on a low income, then you might not have a lot of funds to put towards your savings right now. But even if you only have $20 a month to put towards your savings, it's worth doing because it gets you into the habit of consistently making your savings a priority. Your confidence builds with successes. It continues to grow when you keep those small promises that you've made to yourself. So when you say that you're going to do something and actually do it, such as paying yourself first, that helps build your financial self-confidence and eliminates self-doubt. Over time, you can increase your savings by cutting back or eliminating some of your fixed and variable expenses, or finding ways to boost your income, such as starting a side hustle. But for now, find an amount to put towards your savings that you feel comfortable with, even if it's only $20. Every little bit counts. So for me, I put some money towards our house savings because we're trying to afford a down payment on a home. And I also replenished some of my emergency fund that I used last month. The next step is to list all your debt. I currently don't have any debt right now except for a mortgage, so I left this section blank. This would include things like card loans, any high interest debt you're carrying around, such as credit card debt, personal loans, or student loans. List out everything and write down the minimum payments because you have to make the minimum payment every single month. Now, depending on your lifestyle and goals, if you're eager to get out of debt as fast as possible, you can choose to cut back or eliminate some of your variable expenses. But I don't recommend making your fun and discretionary spending too strict because this can lead to feelings of scarcity and blowing your budget. Remember, a budget is a tool to help you do more with your money. It's not a straitjacket to keep you from enjoying your life. If you don't make room in your budget for the fun stuff, you'll be less likely to stick to it in the long run. And at the end of the day, the best budgeting method for you is the one that you'll stick to. Once you have your debt written down, calculate the amount of money left over in your budget. You want to make sure that the amount left over equals zero, since we're creating a zero-based budget, where every dollar is given a purpose. So your income minus expenses, which also includes your savings and debts, should equal zero. This is how you make a budget. So congratulations on taking this huge and important step for your financial future. You're already on your way to taking control of your money and doing amazing things. I am so proud of you. Now, to make sure that your budget is working for you, the next step is to track your spending once the month begins. This will help you see if you're staying on budget and will let you know how much money you have left to spend in each budget category. When you track your spending, this gives you a huge sense of control over your money. You don't have to worry if you have enough to get groceries because you've already made a plan beforehand and stuck to it. I know that tracking your spending doesn't sound like the most exciting thing to do, but it's an essential part of building a successful budget. So, what's the best way to track your spending? The best way is to find out the method that works for you. For example, you can use an app for your phone or tablet, a spreadsheet, or keep it simple by using a pen and paper. I personally like to use this worksheet to track and manage my monthly spending. Every time I spend money, I record the transaction on this worksheet. This can include both your fixed and variable expenses as well as your debt payments. Depending on how many transactions I do in a single month, I sometimes need to print out 2 worksheets. Then at the end of the month, I'll use a highlighter or a colored pencil to highlight each spending category with a different color. This helps me to keep track of everything and keep it organized and see exactly how much money I spent for the month on bills, groceries, clothing, restaurants, and so on. Tracking your spending can also reveal any spending issues you might have and help you stick to your budget. For example, when I first started budgeting, I didn't realize just how much money I was spending on clothing and restaurants. If you find that you've blown your budget within the first week of payday, take a moment to breathe. You are not a failure. Remind yourself that this is just a bend in the road, not the end of the game. When we make mistakes in our budget, we can use this as an opportunity to learn and grow. I know it's easy to get frustrated, but remember that this is temporary. and you will get a better handle on this whole budgeting thing. So there you have it. This is how to create a zero-based budget for beginners. I hope you found this video useful, and if you'd like to see more content to help you get good with money, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you next time.